In this farewell, there's no blood, there's no alibi, 'cause I've drawn regret from the truth of 1,000 lies. So let mercy come and wash away what I've done. I'll face myself to cross out what I become. Erase myself and let go of what
Hello guys, I'm Sharp came back in once again. Shot title video. Does the Transformer Michael Bayformers make any sense timeline wise? A lot of people propose this question. A lot of people say Michael Bayformers don't make any sense and it's just random, so on and so on. But I personally believe, in a weird way, it does. It really does. All of it connects, all of it makes sense. And somebody say, well, it don't make any sense how certain Transformers are on Earth and then next thing they're not on Earth, but they back on Earth. It does all make sense. Because, as they said in the second movie, the Cybertronians have been fascinated with planet Earth since the Fallen tried to blow it up all the way back in Africa thousands of years ago. I both believe they just left the planet and just, well, you know, just, oh well. Let's go to another thing, right? We've had 7 primes. The leader of the Transformers, the leader of these first expeditions off the planet, die. No one questioned it. Similar to how they take out the Fallen. It's never explained what happened to the Fallen. We don't know where the Fallen has been for thousands of years. Did the Fallen ever make it back to Cybertron after he was betrayed by his brothers? Or maybe he was trapped on the planet. Maybe. Maybe he's been in hiding for thousands of years until he was found. Quite recently, somebody said, what are you saying? Let's go all the way back. We know the Cybertronians showed up on Earth thousands of years ago, like during BC times, right? Showed up then, Star Harvester, the Fallen tried to blow up the planet. And was unknowingly, he would have blew up the planet, or blew up the planet's sun. We technically don't know what would have happened. Somebody said, what do you mean? It's revealed in the last night that Earth is Unicron. Which explains why the Cybertronians keep coming to it. Because it's something instrumental and important to them. Now, it's never confirmed if the Primus exists inside the Michael Bayformers, but Unicron himself does. So if one exists, Primus got to be somewhere. Somebody say, well, shouldn't Primus just be Cybertron? No. Much I like to pull out the Energon trilogy, I doubt they would do that. And I'm pretty sure if they're going to make Unicron Primus, well, Unicron Earth, that Primus is going to be one of Cybertron moons, something like that. It just would have made sense. They would have had this great battle. They would have split off. Unicron was last halfway across the galaxy in his defeat, and Primus was so weak he could no longer fuse with the planet, so he became one of Cybertron moons, and then into that movie they had to bring him back and so on and so on. They have this big intergalactic fight, right? So that would explain that. So ironically enough, we don't know if Unicron would have kept the planet alive with some his own heat itself, or he would have or everything on the planet would have just died. Technically, we don't know what would have happened. What Unicron work up since there's been this major change, since this major energy source has been brought onto the planet, since he was absorbed by the Star Harvester? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. So after that point, it's only until the medieval times we see the Transformers again, or which you could introduce it to Merlin and his knights and the Dragonstorm Knights. Now we don't know if this was the creation of the Cybertronian Knights or it's happened after this. Now somebody said, what do you mean? We don't have a proper explanation on where Grimlock comes from, or the rest of the Dinobots, or when were they made, or when were they created, were they some of the first Transformers made after Quintessence set off that bomb on planet Earth, and was those early dinosaurs are still fossilized into in a solid metal, or this happens after that. We just don't know. Don't know. All we know is the secrets are sent from planet to planet to find empty worlds for them to blow up. Which is also confirmed that it's more or less confirmed that the Fallen cannot transform. Now somebody say, well, why I say that is because Jetfire mentioned that his father was one of the first and he could not transform. Meaning that the Fallen, who should be older than his Jetfire, can't transform. But what about the figures? Those are just figures, buddy. Those are just figures. Just the way it is. Just the way it is. unless it's some type of special line, it has to have some type of transformation because it's called a transform. But what about the Transformers Red series? When did that come out? Exactly. All right. So that happens after that. Merlin and his knights show up and form the Merlin Knights with Cybertronians. Merlin goes into hiding and hides the staff. And ever since that point, not much more or less happens after that. Up until the 1800s happens with Megatron. Well, correction, before that, before Megatron lands on planet Earth, Sentinel and the Ark crash lands on Earth. And this is towards the end of the Cybertronian War of the Autobots. Decepticon, he crashed not on Earth, he crash lands on the moon. He crash lands there. It's a complete wipeout. All the crew members on this ship is dead besides from Sentinel himself. Right? The only reason he left the planet Cybertron because it had a backwater deal with Megatron to send all the troops towards a weaker planet to take over and do so on and so on. Right? But Sentinel was put out of commission, put into a stasis lock, and they was able to fulfill that side of the deal. So Megatron assumed that he was dead. The only reason Megatron ended up in the same solar system as ours, ended up in the same galaxy as ours, was because he was chasing after the Allspark after the Allspark was launched from the planet. Years ago. And it's after chasing after that, he crash lands on Earth, meets Sam Witwicky's grandfather, and next thing you know, flashes him, and next thing you know, he's stuck in the Arctic until he is found by Ness and so on and so on. Right? Not by Ness, found by the United States government and brought to the Hoover Dam. Now, how they kept him frozen that long, I don't know. Maybe they just threw a whole bunch of ice on him, because they had this man in the deep storage. Like, he was supposed to be frozen solid, stiff. And you know, as a transformer, supposed to have a much higher, cooling temperature than a normal human being. So I don't know how they transported him during the 60s. Who knows? But from the 1800s, Megatron has been there since until they built the Hoover Dam, right? So up to that point, we see multiple times the Transformers have showed up to the planet time and time and time again. And so far, everything in the timeline makes sense. Now, some might say, what about Optimus Prime is connected to his knighthood? I'll say that's up in the air, because we don't know what happened on Cybertron. But what about the IDW comics? The IDW comics are not canon. The only thing I consider canon from those comics is the fact that Skids and Mudflap was killed by Sentinel Prime. Outside of that, there's nothing. Because there's no excuse of why they're not there. There's not. Aside from the fact they didn't want to bring him back. But couldn't he got killed by the KSI drones? No, KSI drones are the same size as Skids and Mudflap. Stop it. Got killed by Sentinel Prime, off screen, on to the next. So up to this point, we see that the Cybertronians have been back to planet Earth over and over and over again. And as Optimus Prime says, it seemed like they will never let this planet go. I guess it was right. So in this case, somewhere around the 1800s as well, after Megatron crashed landed onto the planet, Drift and Mudflap showed up. I believe that picture was taken with some it was taken around somewhere around the 18 and early 1900s, because Japan didn't become modernized until late 1800s. So that picture would technically still make sense around 19. Well, Megatron landed around 1965. So Drift and his partner there. I was funny. I was thinking what if that other guy is locked down? But that'll be a nice tie into IDW comics. But sadly, that's not true. Probably old boy standing there with Drift is more than likely dead. Just the way it is. But yeah. Now somebody said, "Why would Drift be there?" Who knows? Why would Drift be there that early? I can't give you a proper explanation of why on the Autobot side of why he would be there. Besides for some potential. Wait. Pause. There is a reason. It is confirmed that Drift used to be a Decepticon, and it's also confirmed that the Seekers has been on the planet since the 1800s. We've seen the photos. We've seen the images. Is it the fact that Jetfire have a more updated mode because he updated his transformation recently? We still got those old classic guys, right? So Drift could have been sent there as a more younger Seeker to invade the humans and see what's going on until he flipped and joined the Autobots later on. He could have flipped during World War II. He could have flipped during World War I because Bulldog's the Autobot, and it's confirmed that he's showed up around World War I. So, on to Barricade, Bumblebee, and Hotshot showing up in World War II. I believe this is the point where Sector 7 was, the early version of Sector 7 was formed. But somebody said, well, about the secrets of the Wiki family and so on and so on. You can take with that whatever you want, but it also connects in around this time period and around Sam and his grandfather getting his glasses and putting on the glasses. all falls in together, right? I can't give you no in-depth situation with the whole Wiki family, so on and so on. That plot point is, it is what it is. I'm just talking about the main Transformer stuff here, right? It could be proposed that that's when Drift flipped. Now somebody say, what was Drift this whole time? I do have an explanation of why Drift was not in World War I and II, and why Drift seemingly was off the planet, then came back towards Age of Extinction. Now somebody say why, and that is, so they didn't know what Megatron was, right? They didn't know. They had no inclination of it, right? He was there, and then he was sent off the planet. And somebody say, why was he sent off the planet? Because there was no reason to really truly stay there. It's the same reason why Dragonstorm was pretty much in hiding for years. Outside of trying to find Megatron at a potential location where he landed at, because we don't know the total number of seekers, outside of that, and trying to find the Star Harvester, on which, why would the Decepticons be trying to find the Star Harvester? Why? Why would the Seekers be in here for all these years? Because if it was to find Megatron, then it wouldn't be so hard, right? Right? Unless the Decepticons wasn't following Starscream. Unless the Decepticons wasn't following Soundwave. The Decepticons in Transformers 1 was following the Fallen. And the proof that point is Jetfire and the Seekers. Why would they sent there to find the Star Harvester? Who would want to find the Star Harvester? The Fallen, who's confirmed to be alive in the first movie, but we don't know his location. Similar to how we don't know whether after he was defeated in all the way back in 2000 BC, whether he was exiled off the planet, or maybe he tried to escape with his teleportation ability, and as far as he can get is on one of the moons of Saturn or Jupiter. As far as he can go. Or the Decepticons brought him over here. Either or, the Fallen was in the first movie. And that's who the Decepticons were following, because it makes sense. Because look at their objectives. Why else was it on the planet during that time? To look for the Star Harvester. Who would have commissioned that mission? There's no other primes. There's only the Fallen. So remember, outside of Drift, who is a confirmed former Decepticon, there were no Autobots on the planet until the early 1900s with Bulldog. And well, later on, 20 years later, well, 30 to 20 years later, with Bumblebee and Hot Rod. Meaning, what did the Decepticons do to cause Earth to show up onto their radar? Now, somebody say, what about the rover that showed up on Mars? That rover that was sent like, what, 06, 07? That was Ironhide. Well, how you know could it be Starscream? Because we know what Protoform Starscream looked like in the action figure. Don't look like that. And somebody say, well, Protoform Optimus don't look the way he's supposed to. They could have changed the design. That's not Starscream. I'm sorry, it's just not. Because Starscream, by that time period, was already on the planet. And I provide proof of this. Because a lot of things, if you think about it, will make sense. It also explains why it took them all the way to 07 to find Megatron. Because they wasn't finding Megatron for a reason. Because they were following the leadership of the Fallen to find the Star Harvester, which is another energy source. Up until Soundwave chose to investigate and to infiltrate Nest. Why would Soundwave infiltrate Nest? Now it's implied in the third movie, well, it's because of Megatron, but why would it be because of Megatron if Megatron was deep frozen till 07? He was frozen to damn near over 100 years. More than likely over 100 years. If that's the case, why was Soundwave infiltrating Nest? Why would Soundwave send them to, was so intrigued with going to the moon? Why? Why? It's quite simple. When Soundwave infiltrated Nest, he found out two different things. Number one, he found out the location of Sentinel Prime, and he found that they was on the moon. What it do to some telecode spot, some way somehow he found out he was on the moon. Second, he helped fund the project, gave them the proper specs for the technology to help send them to the moons, and the human beings confirmed that only was Sentinel on the moon, that everybody was more or less assumed dead, and Sentinel Prime was in stasis lock, so they can't do anything with him. But also, while infiltrating Nest, he found out a second thing, and that is there was keeping Megatron somewhere on planet Earth. Now some might say, well, how would he find that out? And how come, if he knew about it, how come he didn't immediately invade the Hoover Dam? Megatron was a top secret project for years, for decades, darn near a century. So just because he found out that Megatron was on Earth does not mean that he found out where he was. He probably figured out the Wiki family and how they tied into it. He probably figured out how they was able to recover Megatron from the Arctic. And that's what he would have found out about Sam Witwicky. That's what he would have found out about Megatron was on the planet. But why didn't they go after Sam Witwicky until like '07? It's because technically they didn't have a reason to. Because I personally believe Soundwave chose to infiltrate Nest of its own accord outside of the Fallen's decision. Now somebody say, why would he do that? It's quite simple. Megatron made a deal with Sentinel Prime on Cybertron with the Ark, and nobody else knew about it. Optimus didn't know about it. Starscream didn't know about it. Nobody else knew about it. So if only Megatron knew about it and Sentinel, then why wouldn't the first communication officer, one of Megatron's most loyal subjects, Soundwave, also not know about it? Which explains why he showed up. Let's go to another case. If you pay attention, why did Soundwave return to becoming a Mercedes-Benz? And also, how did Frenzy get to the planet? Well, he was there with Barricade. Barricade was already there. You could argue that he was there before Bumblebee. So how was Frenzy on the planet? And why did Soundwave return from being a satellite back to being a vehicle? Unless Soundwave was always a vehicle. Soundwave was always a transportation vehicle. He always was. He became a satellite when they launched him into space, and he fused with the satellite in '09. Why was he launched into space? He transformed into some type of Cybertronian satellite to do what? To single out the location of Megatron. And after Megatron was found and killed, he no longer needed to be up there. So that's when he fused the satellite to find where they hid Megatron. Well, why didn't he come down in the first movie? Because he was never told to come down. Because they were still following under the instruction of the Fallen. See how things make sense? See how things are connecting the dots? Now some might say, well, why did they wait so long to finally get Megatron? And that is because after all this time, for one, I personally believe something happened with Starscream to the point where the Fallen got sick of him, personally. Because remember, don't you think it's strange how in the first movie that Megatron was not upset that someone took his position? But in the second movie, he was upset that Starscream tried to take his position. Why wasn't he upset in the first movie? Why wasn't he upset about because he didn't have the cube? It's because he knew the Decepticons were following the orders of the Fallen. Because until they found out about Megatron and how his possible being and actually increased the search for him, the main objective was finding the Star Harvester. Always. When that fell through, the Fallen was like, well, darn it, bring back Megatron. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of wasting time. Bring back Megatron. Everything else answered itself. It will explain why they try to break neck and try to find the cube. Because somehow, some way, it's rather that one or two things happened when Soundwave infiltrated NASA. They rather found out Megatron was on the planet, or they found out the cube was on the planet. It doesn't matter which one is which or which came first. They found out one or the other. Because remember, Megatron was not a major priority up to a certain point. So more than likely, they found the cube first. They didn't know where Megatron was. They just knew that Megatron was chasing after it and he ended up frozen. They can't do anything with Sentinel because they don't got the Matrix to bring him back. But could the cube bring him back? Just like how they gave Frenzy a new body? Just like how it resurrected Megatron in the second movie? Possibly. It was only to that movie where Blackout was sent in, the only one that expert with technology across the board, where they found out about the glasses, where they found out about some extra stuff about Megatron being on the planet and him flashing a potential map onto Sam Witwick's grandfather's glasses. All connects, all makes sense. Which is why Megatron is brought back then. And once you think about it, a lot of the actions of the Decepticons in that movie at the beginning doesn't make any sense. What was Demolisher and Sideways doing in China? In Shanghai? What was their objective? Why did they wait last minute to escape? Supposed to believe they couldn't sense or see anybody coming close to them? That they just couldn't sense what it is? If Ironhide could smell a Demolisher, I'm supposed to believe that he couldn't do vice versa. Unless that was following the commands of an incompetent leader in Starscream. Let's go to another case. Don't you think it's also strange that Starscream wasn't there to see the resurrection of Megatron? But he was one of the first people to help break out Megatron? Why is that? It's almost like, could it be possible that the Fallen got tired of dealing with Starscream and his incompetence, and he said, well, we gotta bring back Megatron now, because it was a 2-year time skip. 2 years. Anybody with a camera could have seen that Optimus Prime picked up something extra from Megatron's chest. What took them 2 years? Unless the Fallen put his fate after Megatron failed into somebody else. And after 2 years of Starscream's incompetence, we gotta bring back Megatron now! Which would explain why Starscream isn't there to see Megatron's resurrection. It wasn't just, well, Megatron's coming back. Could it be that the Fallen was making moves behind the scenes and not informing Starscream of it?
Lord Megatron, I was so relieved to hear of your resurrection.
Because there's no way Starscream didn't know about the Fallen. There's no way. There's no way. Because like I said before, the Decepticons have been on the planet for quite some time. Somehow some Decepticons helped out the Nazis in World War II. So if they've been on the planet for that long, who orders what they're following? You see how all this stuff connects to that? See how this stuff makes sense? Well, you want to say it was off the hinges or there wasn't planned for it? You think about it. Makes sense. So, brings back Megatron. The entire events of Revenge of the Fallen plays out. So on and so on and so on. We all know that. So, with that case, right, got in the Matrix. As soon as they got the Matrix, why didn't Megatron just go try to resurrect Sentinel Prime? Well, quite simple. Following the orders of the Fallen. So then when the Fallen died, which goes into my other Matrix theory, the Matrix cannot be taken. It is a spiritual object. It is not just a physical one. So when Optimus Prime blew it up, it did not destroy what the Matrix was. Because like the Primes told Sam, the Matrix leadership is not taken, it is earned. So it would have known they would still be inside of Optimus, in one way or another. And that's why Megatron kicked in his late NASA stuff he got from Starscream, another from Soundwave, and that's when they started to do so and so. Because you gotta explain why was Frenzy on the planet. Scorponauts make sense. Scorponauts and Black as a tag team. Why was Frenzy on the planet? Already on the planet. And why was he teamed up with Barricade? Because Soundwave have already been to the planet. It's the same way we didn't see Rumble until that second movie. But Frenzy is already there? Why is that? I'm telling you, man, you look at it, think about it, connect the dots. It does make loose sense. It does add up. It does. It explains what the Decepticons on the planet are already. It would explain, but what about the Autobots? Why do Autobots keep coming and leaving? Because they keep seeing Decepticon activities, but they can't figure out why. They can't. It's only till Bumblebee informing them what's going on to the planet and what Megatron potentially is on the planet. That, like, it's only to that first movie the Autobots get some type of full picture. That's why Hot Rod never did leave. He stayed behind as an integral spy. It's the same reason why Bumblebee kept sending back and forth. Does the Autobots know about the NASA thing? No. Obviously by that from the third movie. But they know some type of activity was happening on the planet. So they send Bumblebee back again. It'll explain why certain Transformers show up and disappear. It will explain why they seemingly keep going back and forth. If the Decepticons are here, then the Autobots also must be here in some form or fashion. Has to be. So, there's that. When you look at that concept, the plot does make sense. Even though I want to say retcons, even want to say, well, how did Optimus Prime become a knight? We don't know what happened on Cybertron. He could have become a knight before they all left Cybertron. He could have become a knight ever since he came fresh out the factory. Because remember, Lockdead said he was built, not made, born. So what, all other Cybertronians born? Simply like we don't know when the Dinobots were made. We don't know. So were they all made as one set, like a deck of cards, or were they made at different time periods? Well, the Dinobots made first, and Optimus Prime was made last as the last Prime, as a last contingency plan, whether it's from Primus or the Autobots themselves, to be this potential savior of all things good on planet Cybertron. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. All makes sense. So all that old NASA stuff that Soundwave was doing comes back into play in the third movie. And you know, after that grandiose plan, You know, it still fails. Well, but Megatron should have chose to agree with Optimus and hold the lead. I'm glad that stupid plot line didn't happen, because it didn't make any sense for his character. Especially at that time period. I'm supposed to believe supposed to get reinvigorated by Carly to take over the Decepticons and just, well guys, we're going to become good guys. Stop. Well, you know what would have been a perfect Megatron to turn Megatron good? Your TF5 Megatron. The one who described being on Earth as hell. The one who seemingly... Like, Megatron in TS5 is very strange. But outside of the NASA stuff, he never really took hostages. He never really tried to do anything with the human beings. They were just more of a nuisance and cockroaches than anything else. But TS5's, he's willing to make backdoor deals. He's willing to do all these other things. Like, TF5 Megatron has been through the ringer. He's just had enough. He just can't do this no more, man. He can't do it. I've had enough. I want off of this planet, and which is why... For one, if you believe in my Megatron theory that he got the an R-spark fragment in his brain, which is why he's able to survive getting... Now that's the thing. The shot to his face was never going to kill him. That was never going to kill him. But the decapitation was supposed to. But he stayed alive because of the, in my opinion, the R-spark fragment. So you believe in that, how he was able to infect Galvatron with his programming, how he was able to transfer the fragment into the body through the little mini Decepticons. You believe all that, so on and so on. It'll make sense why, for one, well, you never got an explanation why the Decepticons went post Age of Extinction, but it was explained for one what Galvatron did after Age of Extinction. How did he interact with Quintessa? How did he get in contact with Quintessa? So on and so on. It's almost like after that point, did Megatron try to leave on lockdown ship? Which is, well, why would Optimus Prime just go off into space to find his creators when he had no idea of where his creators could be? Remember, he was found by accident by Quintessa in space. Somehow, all the Decepticons randomly, lockdown gets killed. We gotta hop onto the ship. We gotta roll, boys. We gotta roll. Who gave them that order? And why was Megatron so content with saying, "This isn't over, because I have been reborn"? Like I said before, that's the same Megatron with the same brain from the 1 to 3rd movie, and I'm supposed to believe he's supposed to roll over? Stop it. Stop the crack. Stop the drugs. Stop it. But about TF5, I'm pretty sure he took those other Decepticons and left the planet. Those other KSI drones. And when he did leave the planet, he encountered Quintessa. Now, how, when? I don't know. We don't know how... No. We do know how... Got a decent idea how fast Lockdown Ship is, especially with a dark matter drive. So it does make sense of how Megatron was able to beat Optimus Prime to Quintessa, especially at the speeds he was probably going, trying to get off the damn planet. Where he was booking it, baby. He was moving like Dash when he was when he put that thumbtack on the teacher's chair. Boy, you were moving it, weren't you? I was going up 1,000 miles a minute. So Megatron meets Quintessa. Quintessa gives him a new body. Megatron wants to see the return of Cybertron and does not care about the human beings. And that's when Megatron also learns about the whole the planet itself being Unicron, which is quite ironic. Everybody has been fighting over a Cybertronian this whole time. Isn't that funny? Does it also mean that human beings are somewhat Cybertronian? Which is why Kate Yeager and the Nitro are formed all those years ago, with that singular purpose to ensure the whole Unicron scenario would never happen. We go to another case. What about the Quintessons before the Fallen showed up? We don't know if it actually... Yeah, we don't know if it's before. Because we don't know when the Quintessons... Because Quintessons showed up with the dinosaurs being on the planet. That's still before the Fallen showed up. So, what about those guys? Quintessa is not a Quintesson. She's probably a servant of the Quintessons, or a byproduct, or like a grandchild or a daughter, but she's probably one of the first generation of Transformers before the Seekers and before the Primes were made. And somebody say, what I say that? Because she looks different. The Quintessons shown in Age of Extinctions had flesh, and they're more or less cyborgs, right? Quintessa have none of those components. None. On which she could be the original default blueprint that the girl from the second movie, the one that was trying to seduce Sam, that one, I forgot what it's called, like a protoform, not a protoform, it's called something else. Like the infiltrated Decepticon that was killed by the car. She could have been a blueprint for that one, because in the last night she does take on a human form. So she could be the first one to ever be able to have that ability. And then, you know, generations down the line, you know, other Transformers and Cybertroners able to have. But she's obviously not a Quintessence. She never was, especially with Dragonstone describing her as the Great Deceiver.
Quintessa is the Great Deceiver!
And as a witch. So no, she's not a Quintessence, even though everybody keeps, oh, she's a Quintessence. No, she's not. She's a lie. She's lying to people. And somebody say, what was Quintessa doing this whole time with the primes and so on and so on? And everything happened on Cybertron and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And could have Quintessa not been the creator of the Transformers, but quit Quintessa mate Optimus Prime himself? I would say no. There's too much history with the whole Prime thing for just, well, you know, I got me one. Now, could she influence his creation or make some alterations to his memory? Possibly. Possibly. But I don't think like she was the one that actually made Optimus. It's just not possible. There's too much continuity facts to that, especially with the whole Prime lineage thing. And we're back. Unless you're trying to say that Sentinel is a false Prime, then from that case, then well, at least want to say Optimus is a fake Prime. Then that's the case. Then what about Sentinel? Is Sentinel a true Prime? And when there's a stupid argument, well, since Sentinel got a hat, he's not a real Prime. Stop the bull. Optimus confirm it, and almost the other characters confirm it. Stop being stupid. Stop. Transformer 1 has no relevance to the Michael Bayformers. Stop with the lies. Stop. He's always got to be somebody lying all the damn time. But overall, that is the Transformers Michael Bayformers timeline. What about Rise of the Beast? We all know Rise of the Beast in the Bumblebee movie is not canon to the Michael Bayformers, but he produced the movies. Please don't be that dumb. Please. Please, save yourself. But that's the overall timeline. I don't believe there's any natural way for the Autobots to defeat Unicron without blowing up the planet. Because we also what happened the last time someone used the Matrix. Like, Unicron was tearing itself to pieces. And on top of that, you don't want Unicron to transform. So probably more than likely, they're going to find some way to... Quintessa is going to find some way to bring Unicron's spark to Cybertron. And he transforms that way. And like I said before, they got to bring in Primus and the Matrix, and somehow they kill him that way. Because they can't just destroy the planet itself. Even the Transformer Prime to do that. But they did put him to sleep! So that's that. So yeah, guys, this has been my overall video about the Michael Bay Transformers timeline. You think about it, a lot of things does make sense. Even with the heavy, major retcons that were made in the later movies. When you connect the dots and put back the Autobots been to the planet multiple times and left behind Bulldog and Hot Rod as a spy. And then sent back Bumblebee twice because they discovered some Decepticon activity the first time and left Hot Rod behind the second time. And I sent back Bumblebee again to see what the Decepticons are doing again. Because wouldn't they be curious of why they keep coming back to this planet? And that's when Bumblebee got the knowledge and stuff for the glasses and so on and so on. That's when you knew Megatron was on the planet and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. You know, information get passed around, things, stuff like that. But yeah, that's been my discussion about the timeline. It doesn't make sense, or does it not to me? It does. Especially with the whole, when you realize that Starscream was not running the show in the first movie, a lot of things would make sense. It'll make sense of why Bone Crusher, Devastator, and Bone Crusher Brawl, even though he was announced as Devastator, and Blackout seen the show up recently. It makes sense why Devastator and Bone Crusher is already there. They didn't just recently show up. They were already there with Starscream. Why were they there? Connect the dots, in my opinion, it all makes sense. But I know you got thoughts and opinions about my personal version of the Transformer timeline. Sure, it's not the most edited or well put together video, but damn it, does it not make sense? Cause I remember I think about this downstairs, like, hey, but wait a minute, whoa, like, wait a minute, connecting the dots. This is making sense. It really is, like, it's making sense. Starscream and all that in Soundwave, it makes sense. It adds up. It makes sense. It makes sense. But I've been MSWK, Mr. Shockwave King. If you guys like the video, like, comment, subscribe, and am I back? I don't know. But peace.